I think we're ready. Everybody can hear us? Okay, Daniel?
All right. Good evening, everybody. It is 7:34 on Wednesday, February 19th. This is, well, it was going to be a special meeting, but then that got canceled. So this is our regular monthly meeting for February of the Cultural Arts Commission, and I will begin things as I always do by conducting a roll call vote, starting with Marlo.
Present.
And then Tim. Don't see Tim. Alicia.
Present.
And then Monique. Don't see Monique. I know Kelly will not be able to join us this evening. So Matthew.
Present.
And I am also present. Kind of a small group, but 4 is a quorum. So we can go ahead with our agenda. We do have some things we have to approve. First of all is the minutes from the December 11th, 2024 meeting. That was my birthday, so happy belated birthday to myself. Does anybody have any points of contention or questions about the minutes from our December 11th meeting? Hearing none, would anybody like to make a motion to approve the minutes for our December 11th, 2024 meeting?
So made.
Thank you, Matthew. Can I get a second?
Second.
I believe that was Alicia. It's a little bit quiet. All right. Moved by Matthew, seconded by Alicia. We will now do a roll call vote, starting with Marlo.
Approved.
And then Alicia.
Approved.
And then Matthew.
Approve.
And I shall also approve, passing the approval for the minutes of the December 11th, 2024 meeting unanimously.
And just so everybody knows, if you weren't able to see the minutes from January 13, simply articulate what happened since we didn't actually take any action. So it just shows that we all met for that meeting and then decided to table things.
Excellent segue. Does anybody have any points of contention or questions about those minutes for the January 13th special meeting where we were present? Hearing none, I will look for approval for the January 13th special meeting minutes.
Move to approve.
Thank you, Matthew. Can I get a second?
Second.
Thank you, Marlo. And I will do a roll call vote, starting with Marlo.
Approved.
And then Alicia.
Approved.
And then Matthew.
Approve.
And I shall also approve passing the January 13th special meeting minutes unanimously, which takes us to our first agenda item, which is discussing the master plan presentation and voting on a recommendation to accept as our recommendation for the city commission.
Is there a public comment? Is there public comment or?
Oh, actually, yeah, I'm sorry. Did I not?
It's not on my list.
I'm sorry.
But,
I goofed.
At this time, we will look
If
for anybody
wants
public
to-
comment.
thank you, Matt.
It doesn't appear there's anybody here in the room, but if there's anybody lurking or anybody online, now is the time to make a public comment. Hearing none, we can get moving to the first agenda item, which is discussing the master plan presentation. Thank you, Matthew, for calling me on that. Is there any further discussion of our recommendation to the city commission around accepting the master plan? Something we've talked about a number of times before.
Just to reiterate for folks, so you all saw the presentation. The suggestions for arts and culture haven't changed since fairly early in the process, or not early, but midway through the process after the consultants had met with a lot of folks in town. So there's nothing new or different than you've already been aware of, just for your understanding. And as I pointed out, it's everything is available in draft form on this community engagement page here, and I can quickly pull this up just so everybody knows. This is the actual matrix, which hasn't changed. I think there's 12 recommendations. Strengthen the presence of indigenous community within the city through arts and culture collaborations, formalize the public art programming by advancing the reaffirmed resolution to an ordinance, formalized collaborative relationships with Lawrence Arts Center, Theater Lawrence, and Watkins Museum of History, and/or Lawrence Public Library as cultural programming partners of the, we need to change, that did change since we're PRC now. Continuing providing and further improving grants to help support arts and culture creators and encourage collaborations with the city and creating arts and culture in Lawrence. Develop additional signature city events in Lawrence. Work with the community to explore adding a new monument or public artwork at Robinson Park as part of the public art plan. Execute a market study for the building of an outdoor event space amphitheater to understand the community demand and programming types that would be successful in Lawrence. To increase the city's creative capital, work with the Affordable Housing Office and Advisory Board to explore possibilities for affordable housing in Lawrence for artists. Explore developing the historic Grover Barn building into an art and culture site. As part of the public art plan, enhance city entrances with large landmark art pieces. Develop a sculpture garden in the Rotary Arboretum. And develop a menu of collaborative special events to include cultural events that celebrate the diversity of the Lawrence community. And PJ Novick and Hank Moyers from Confluence are here in case anybody does have any questions.
Great, thank you for that overview, Porter. Does anybody have anything? Obviously, we have talked about it before. I will say, just in case nobody else has anything else to say, that I'm a fan. I love The Matrix. I think there's some really good stuff on there, some stuff that will really allow our community to make some big steps forward. So that's my 2 cents. And hearing none.
Oh, Marlo?
I just wanted to say that as a grant advocate, I'm so happy to see the grant programs highlighted as a high impact. I can't remember if it was a medium cost, high impact description on that one, but I think that program is so important. And not only our community arts grant program, but the TGT program, those are really what feed the signature events in the city. So I was delighted to see that come up again. I did take time to read that entire 200 whatever page count that document, and I thought it was great. It was very comprehensive. I think the art components were thoughtful. There were some things in there about funding that I question, the idea of putting tax dollars from TGT funds to fund more Parks and Rec. That one I was kind of unsure about. And then there was some verbiage on some document. I read so many hundreds of pages, I don't recall where exactly it is in the plan, but it talked about adding arts and culture to Parks and Recreation. You're basically needing another funding source to make that happen. And so that kind of rubbed me the wrong way, because I was thinking well, if it requires additional sponsorship and donors, Lawrence is such a small community with so many nonprofits, and we're all competing for the same donor pools. That just felt like, well, then why did we do this merger? So that language, I remember that being something that struck me as something, not as thematically engaged as some of the other things that were mentioned in it. I did love how the plan talked about other cities of comparable size. So I found that really informative, and I went to research those. And so I really appreciated the time that was spent to compare and look at other cultural arts institutions and how they work with their cities. So I thought that was really worthwhile for that. I think the plan itself will be wonderful to use as a tool in the future to not only just have those matrix up there, but I would love to see milestones. Are we hitting some of those within 2 years' time, 5 years' time, making sure that it's not just some document that we kind of speak theoretically about, but just that we kind of routinely go back to and say, have we made an improvement in this area? Have we made a step? So I hope that those things happen with it. But overall, I'm happy with the plan. And so I'm grateful for everybody spending so much time, especially the art component, taking so much time to speak to people, having task force meetings, one-on-one meetings. That was a really well-engaged process.
Well said, Marla. All right, it sounds like the comments so far have been wholly positive, so unless anybody else has any other questions or comments, our next assignment is to vote on whether we should recommend to the city commission to accept this, this master plan. Can I get a motion to do so?
Make a
Motion.
motion. Oh, go ahead.
Second.
All right, we'll count Marlo as having made the motion, and Matthew will have seconded due to the simultaneous nature of their moving. And then we'll go to a roll call vote, starting with Marlo,
Approve.
and then Alicia,
Approve.
and then Matthew.
Approve.
And I shall also approve. Thank you to the folks who have joined us specifically for this portion. Hopefully you aren't disappointed that we didn't have a million questions for you, but we all like the plan that you've put forth, so way to go.
We had some phenomenal answers, though.
All right, maybe we can
Thank you all.
we can continue talking about
Thank you all.
the years, so.
Thanks.
Yeah, let me just say that the hope is to go to the city commission now that both the advisory board and the cultural arts commission have approved it on Tuesday, March 18th. At this time, they're canceling the 11th meeting, so we'll see what the agenda looks like, but it will be within the next 2 or 3 meetings. So thank you very much.
Thanks, BJ and Hank. You can go back to staying warm.
All right. Thanks, Joe. Stay warm.
Thank you all.
All right, that takes us right to our second agenda item. This one hopefully will be just as easy as the last. It's reviewing the 2025 Community Arts Grant applications and scoring and determining the recommendation for the 2025 grant awards for the City Commission to review. Porter is pulling up his fancy
So-
little rubric.
Yeah, and let me give because I know we have a few folks listening in, so just for context. So what we do is everybody submits their applications, as you all well know, and then the Cultural Arts Commission members reviewed all those applications and submitted their individual scores separately. Then they sent all those scores to me, and I put them in our standard deviation calculation rubric, which is really helpful in the sense that it shows us both sort of the average scores and ranks things, but it also gives us deviations above and below the mean and helps us see where things were stronger or weaker according to the scoring, but also provides an opportunity for discussion because it color codes the results, and so it gives a chance so people can argue in favor of something that may have ranked low or against something that may have ranked high. So we're not just doing this completely by scoring necessarily, so to try to give you all that advantage. So with that, I think Kurt's showing it, but I'm going to pop it up on the share screen as well because I can do this in real time. So this is all the scores and then ranked according to the group totals, which you can see here. And the good news is we have 12 applications, and it is only over by $11,000. Typically, these are over by almost double the amount that's available. And I believe that that is in large part due to the fact that we didn't allow for the TGT grants to be duplicated here. So some people were great and did the unmistakable event or TGT grants, and then some of these actually are additional programs for those events, but separately done, which is exactly what we were targeting. So I think that worked out well. So that's where we are, and I'll send it back to you all to share your insights and thoughts.
Is that large enough for you all to see?
Can everybody see that?
Alicia and Marlo, I can see you leaning in a little bit.
I can get it a little bit bigger. Now I have to move it, though. Excel is not my friend. Luis is a master of Excel. He's taught me a lot already.
Every office needs one.
The local Excel nerd.
I'll just say that I was impressed with the applicants, our applications this time. I just felt like, even though it felt like this number was smaller, and I think that was because of the TGT separation and having people not able to apply to both, I thought the quality was good, and there were some new applicants in the pool that I enjoyed hearing from, and getting more engaged with the arts. I'm thinking of the Spring Hill Suites one, not having seen a hotel apply for a cultural arts grant and infusing art into their program, I thought was wonderful. And I think that hotel in particular has done some great art engagement, so I was excited to see that. I enjoyed that Valentine's one about doing the Valentines because it was so community driven and doing hands-on work. And I know that one was kind of interesting because the timing of it, our grant cycle, this has already happened at this point. So it was kind of interesting to read it under that lens. The mural one, there were so many great ones in that group that I really enjoy the idea, can we fund all of them to some extent?
I would add too that looking at the entire list, it's nice to see some kind of ongoing things that we've done that have been going on for years, like the benchmark, for example, things like that, in addition to these newer things too. So I think there's a nice mix, and I think we can do some work in kind of encouraging things that have been worthwhile in the past and encourage people to keep coming up with new ideas as well.
I'm a little bit curious how everyone else felt about the different categories on the scoring rubric and how those did or did not show up in the applications. Because I personally felt like some of the columns across the board, I felt like I mean the one section about environmental sustainability, for example, it really kind of felt like almost a wash with all the applications. There are definitely some that spoke to environmental sustainability, and there's definitely some that require more air or motor vehicle travel, which obviously is, a minor, a slight impact on environmental sustainability, but I didn't feel like it really seemed like something where any of them really stood apart in that category. I also felt like, whereas, I mean, I will say that for the inclusion category, I felt like some of them really did stand out as being not just inclusive, but like very intentional and very thoughtful. So I'm curious how y'all felt about like specifically the rubric categories, and whether or not, I don't know, the environmental sustainability one for me specifically really jumped out, where every time I was going through an application, it was like, this seems like kind of a sure, not really a highlight.
I felt that too, Daniel, and I felt I had to go back and rescore because I was kind of looking at everything as 10 points. And I was like, 10, 1 to 10, 1 to 10. And then I went back, I'm like, this environmental sustainability is 15 points, where other things were like collaboration and all of our other things that we usually score were lower. And so I was like, wow, that seemed like such a big jump. Like I could see if this is an emphasis, having a category for it, so you want to have a specific point system, but being 1/3 higher, like 15 to 10, like that seemed like a huge jump. And I honestly, kind of like you just said, I felt like they were all pretty similar in that area. So I scored them pretty much the same. So it was kind of a wash. That I had that same feeling. And I was like, I don't remember if we reviewed the rubric and matrix, and I just missed that. But it was definitely something that I would love to see reevaluated for next year.
Just to give some background, since not everybody may be up to speed on that, keep in mind that this is, I was guided by the city commission from last year to really make sure that the strategic plan was included. And so that's why you're seeing particularly those two things. So your point is well taken. For anybody that's listening who might apply next year, I'll give a little hint. If you do move in the direction of environmental sustainability and inclusion, that could give you higher scores. So that's the reasoning behind it, just to give you the rationale.
Timothy Smith, yeah, I definitely am not against those being categories in the rubric. It was just kind of interesting to see how, when you have a pool where everyone equally doesn't emphasize something, that the importance of it in the scoring kind of fades away.
Good point.
Yeah, I would just kind of second what everybody else has been saying here. And not that, again, it's not important, but if the point of a rubric like this is to distinguish one applicant from another, and for me, the only distinguishing factor is, like, maybe you got a bonus point because you mentioned something, and nobody lost any points because they weren't actively, like, burning coal outside their performance space, and so it was just kind of like, 7 or 8, but it didn't end up setting one category off from the other.
So I feel like if it had its own column, that would be giving an emphasis. Whereas I think the values, like 15 points, you're scoring on a scale of 1 to 15 versus the other columns being 1 to 10. That was the thing that sort of, I had to go back and redo my scores to evaluate in that way. And I just felt like it felt a little uneven.
Timothy Smith, just for clarity, Porter, I know we've touched on this before, but there are a few projects here that obviously have Cultural Arts Commission members' involvement. So
Oh, gosh, yes.
their scores are averaged,
Yes.
are an average of everyone else's.
Yes, as we've done for years now, and including in the TGT. So yes, wherever anybody had any sort of conflict of interest, potentially, those scores were accounted for. What I do is I figure out, the commissioners were asked to leave those spaces blank, which they did. And then I go back, and after getting all the information in, I average just that row and then put an appropriate score based on the average in there. So it's a neutral score, so to speak, but it doesn't leave it a 0, which obviously would penalize, so to speak, an application. So these results are all true to that.
Porter, did anyone take advantage of our soft launch where they had the opportunity to get feedback from you if they applied a little bit early?
Yes.
In the process?
Our good friends at Spring Hill Suites, I worked closely with them, and they did a terrific job, I think. Like you all, I was really pleased to see, the idea was great, and then when I looked into it, it looked like it was really going to be a pretty remarkable event, which I was impressed by. So, trying to remember who else that was the primary one that I spent a lot of time. And then I did spend some time with the LCNS street mural, just talking to them about how to go about this, and also what they'll need to do in the future if they do indeed move forward with the mural. So yeah, that's helpful.
That's great. I did like that mural application as well. So I'm really glad to hear that, because I think that's an important thing for professional development and just our program in general.
Alicia, you've done some street murals before.
Yeah, I love that application, and especially it linked with the neighborhood and the school, and really it seemed like that whole community is really rallying behind it. And so, and I think I believe Dave Lowenstein is a part of that, helping out as well, which will add success. And so I was really excited to see that application.
So in years past when we've done this, I feel like, obviously there's the individual applications and the scores, how that all breaks down, but I feel like one commonality that comes up year after year is sort of our intent. Do we want to try and fund everybody at some percentage, do a cascading, like 100%, 75%, decreasing down the ranks, and make sure that everybody is funded to some extent? Or do we want to prioritize fully funding as many as possible, with some folks on the bottom sort of having a hard cutoff where folks are not receiving any funding? That way we can make sure that the top 70% of applications are fully funded. I'm curious, obviously we don't have all of our folks present, but I'm curious if anybody immediately has any opinions about which of those two approaches you think we should take with this.
My instinct is that the applicant pool is so modest that I'd like everyone to receive some funding. I'm looking at that podcast one towards the bottom and what a small number that is and what a huge impact that would make on them. And so I would advocate for that in this case. I don't think every case it's always like if you have a pool of 50 applicants and you have this much funds, it doesn't make sense for everyone just to get a little bit. But I feel like with this comparability between our funding and the ask, I feel like that's a real strong way to go.
I agree. I think when it comes to terms of equity, there's a lot of big players here, and then there's some people that I mean, this is only my second year looking at the grants, but some new applications, and so with some of these, like that podcast, that $500 would really be such a big help with them, and so, I mean, my inclination is with the pool of applicants only being 12 this year, that possibly the funding somehow, be available to all, but that's my initial thought. So I kind of feel that same way. I know in the past, the year before, there was talk about, really that importance of funding things 100% or up there quite a bit. But I do think of like the podcast or people asking for less than, a couple of thousand, how important that is, even at that, level. So.
And I tend to agree with that. It'd be a lot different if we had $200,000 worth of requests and, spreading it out among everybody might just mean that some of these things are completely infeasible. I think even if people are getting less than what they asked for in this case, that doesn't completely sink any project, at least given the information I've looked at so far. So I think I would tend to lean that way as well, try to fund everything to some extent.
It's unfortunate that Tim's not here because I feel like the most glaring thing on the whole rubric is his zero for the podcast, which is, he has some lower scores, but that one is a clear standout. It'd be great if we could ask him. I'm curious if he objected to this specific project, or maybe just the idea that there is a $500 ask in here when we do also have the mini grants, which are for $500, and so maybe he saw this as somebody who applied to the wrong thing, which I could see someone arguing that. I mean, we did intentionally create the mini grants, these $500 mini grants for people to apply to try and make it so that essentially we weren't ending up with a bunch of tiny requests in this application pool, but Tim is not here, so we don't know.
And I'll just add, and this is background that none of you would have, but I also worked very closely with them. They were very cautious to apply because they knew this was unusual, but as I learned more about what they're doing, I thought, I don't see any reason why you shouldn't apply, and so I encouraged them to apply. Didn't really understand fully what exactly they were applying for, so I didn't realize before, because I probably would have advised them to consider the mini grant option. But in a way, I'm glad they applied here because I think it's a little different than the mini grant purpose, because they're already doing this work, but they just need some support in moving it forward.
Daniel B. Smith, do you know with the mini grants how many applicants or potential applicants that pool has?
I don't, and typically we see people applying toward the end, closer to the deadline. So I've seen, I think, 2 or 3 applicants so far, and we are limited to 5 of those mini grants. So that's where that stands as well.
I think I'm glad to hear, Porter, that they were contacting you and working with you, because I think, to me, as a working artist, like going up against, I know I'm a part of one of these grant applications and support, but if I was doing something on my own, which I have, and I've had support and gone through it, but it can be intimidating. So with all of these places that have been funded and asking for so much. And so I think it is important that we get more of these artists and people applying that maybe isn't asking for 10,000. And so I'm happy to see it. I'm very happy. It feels a little bit more grassroots in a way that I'm craving or something.
I did feel that same thing with the Valentines for Meals on Wheels. You know, just like the grassrootsness of that one kind of struck me as something that I feel like is a great equity focus for us in our grant program. So I really enjoyed those two as well.
Well, in the past, we've, if we do want to try and fund everybody to some percentage, in the past we have, put together some, made some attempts at putting together what a, decreasing sort of scale of percentiles would look like, with 100% at the top, going down to, I think in the past we've usually sort of established what we felt like was the lowest percentage we wanted to award, and gone from there. I know that we have never gone, pretty sure we've never gone below 50%, seeing 50% as being the absolute bare minimum of an award in order to actually make an impact towards accomplishing a proposal. So I don't remember what we've done in the past, maybe 100% down to 70% or 100% down to 68.5, something like that. So do you, Porter, I know you have some, do you have just one mock-up, or should we just start at the top and just start
I think,
plugging in percentages?
that might be the right way to go, and we can tweak as we go. So just so everybody remembers, if I plug in, just showing you 100% here, the spreadsheet automatically lets us see the result of that and starts to tally the amount. So when we hit 67,500, then we're at our maximum at that point. But then we can go back and adjust things if you'd like to.
The top 5 applicants all have 4 or more people with the +1 standard deviation. Do we want to just try putting all of them at 100%?
So all of these at 100?
Yeah.
Yeah, seemed like a good start.
And that one, right?
Okay, well, we still have money left, so that's good.
Good start. Now I'm trying to do quick math.
Yeah. Well, I mean, the next 4 applicants all, just looking at the column on the far left, the next 4 applicants all have not a blue or a red, but just a white total score. We could consider them sort of the middle of the pack and do, I don't know, we could do 80%.
Yeah, do 80 to start with.
Right, so now we're at 63,000 total. So not a ton left.
Oh, 67, 41.
For those on Zoom who can't tell, Matthew's doing math in his head.
I can just mutter louder if you like, just numbers and numbers.
I assume that at this point, even putting the bottom 3 at 50% will still go over.
It'll be close. It's 700 over.
I'm gonna argue for that podcast being 100%. I'm gonna put it out there. It needs $500. I think it should just be 100%. That's my input.
I like that idea too, because with $500, it may not happen if they don't get, yeah.
And it was very well researched, everything they're doing, so.
So if we wanted to do that, so if we bump down the 80s all to 75, I feel like that'll probably actually give us too much leeway, but
Yeah.
That's pretty close.
An extra $700 floating around or so, 650.
Did you say it was a discrepancy of $700?
Yeah, about.
Could we put that in the mini grant pool?
it's not a bad idea. Just kick it over to the mini grant pool. So instead of doing 5 mini grants, we'll do
you could do
6.5.
You could do that.
That'd work. Otherwise, I'm looking at like kicking the 75s to 77%, but I feel like I'm just playing math games at this point,
You know,
which I like math games, but
I'll say the fact, like, I understand the idea behind doing the podcast 100% because it's a smaller amount. But I think that if we kick the extra 700 over to the mini grants, I don't know. I would like to to at least consider the zero on the scoring sheet, and the fact that by putting an extra 700 into the mini grants, I don't know, sort of if Tim did indeed object to the fact that a potential mini grant applicant was showing up in our community arts grants pool, maybe by throwing a little bit of extra money into the mini grants pool, we can sort of offset that. I also, I don't know. I think in the past we have ended up with some weird percentages and 76.8 or something, but I think having another couple mini grants sounds pretty good to me.
Well, you'd have $641 if my math is correct, which would only be one. I mean,
One more.
depending on what, but people are all theoretically going to be applying for $500 mini grants, so that's just the way it's set up.
So Porter, what you're saying is we don't do partial funding on the mini grants?
It's not designed to ask that way. It's just a $500 grant to buy equipment to help emerging artists advance their career. So what I'm saying is you wouldn't get 2 more mini grants out of this, you'd get 1. And there'd be a little tiny, leftover from that.
Do you want to put that tiny leftover just back into this pile? Just, so we don't have it just hanging around, or are there other uses that we see?
Yeah, it makes sense to put it back in. It's not a lot. We could,
If you change the 50s to 51s.
that's what I was thinking.
Off by $55.
right about
There you
there,
go.
yeah.
Yeah. That works better.
Then we can say going forward that we never fund anything at 50%, but only over 50%.
Works for me.
I think this seems pretty good, especially looking at the far right column, which shows the actual funding amount. We don't have any awkward, we don't have anybody who's receiving, a really tiny sliver of what they asked for. And then we have 6 mini grants.
Has the mini grant deadline passed, or should I be encouraging people to apply?
No, it goes through early March. I think it's March 3rd, I want to say. Sorry, I don't remember off the top of my head. There's so many grant deadlines. mini grant application will open on January 27th and close at 11 p.m. on March 7th. So you can still encourage people, and I know that Nick Carswell has asked me to attend one of his Lawrence Music Alliance meetings to help people understand what that program is for. I anticipate it will probably be competitive, which is good to see.
All right, well, looking at our beautiful rubric with all of our little percentages plugged in, does anybody have any final thoughts before somebody potentially makes a motion to approve? If Tim is watching this later, I'm very eager to hear what the zero is about, and hopefully we can make it up to you. Hearing no further discussion, if anybody wants to make a motion to approve the 2025 Community Arts Grants scoring and recommendations for the City Commission to review, by all means do so.
Yeah, motion to approve.
All right, thank you, Matthew. And do I have a second?
I'll second.
Thank you, Marlo. And we will do the roll call vote, starting with Marlo.
Approved.
And then Alicia.
Approved.
And then Matthew.
Approve.
And I shall also approve, unanimously passing our recommendation for the Community Arts Grants Awards 2025.
And I want to say thank you all for your good work. I know it's, extra work, and it was a little nutty with snow dates and everything else, but you did it and appreciated. And now, yeah, to your point, Marlo, some of these events have already occurred, so trying to get folks their money as quickly as we can will be good too.
Speaking of dates, Porter,
Right.
our next item is not an agenda item, but a bit of miscellany, which is trying to figure out a reschedule for our retreat, which I don't even remember what the original schedule date was supposed to be. Was it yesterday?
Last couple days ago?
It was
ago?
this past Sunday, but with all the craziness with weather, I decided that it would probably be easiest for all of us to pause that and do this meeting. So it's still out there. I don't know if you want to make a decision tonight or if that's something you want to talk about in March. We are sort of in the thick of things. As you've probably seen, what I'm affectionately calling the Outdoor Public Art Exhibition is out on the street right now, because I realized that was running out of time. Everything got a little thrown off with the change in the structure of board and commissions. So I'm just trying to stay up to speed on all that stuff and get these things going. So there's a lot going on currently, so there's not a lot of opportunity with the year already off and running to be real aspirational this year, but certainly for next year to start thinking about where people might want to adjust things with budget, that type of thing, particularly with World Cup coming in as well. So with that, you could just decide to meet later. That wouldn't be a bad idea, I don't think.
Can you remind me of the timeline for that outdoor sculpture exhibition? Did you say like the applications are still coming in, or what
Yes.
stage is that in?
Yes, so I put it out, and the deadline, hang on, I have to. Yes, please share that, by the way, with any artists that might be interested. Let's see. So it opened on February 10th, and it closes at 11 o'clock on Sunday, March 9th. And then I thought we can bring it to that Art Commission meeting on the 10, 11, 12th for you guys to review and make some determinations there.
So do we want to do like an April retreat? Is that what we're sort of thinking? I do like the idea of having gone through these programs, as our kind of revised commission, and then talking about them, because I think we had some feedback on the rubric for this community arts grant. Maybe we'll have some thoughts on the mini grants by that time, or the outdoor sculpture exhibition. So thinking maybe April would be a good time for a retreat.
DLB Smith, yeah, I think that makes sense. Like letting the folks who are not on the previous iteration of this commission have an opportunity to see how things play out before we try and do a higher level examination.
Yeah, I think that's fine. I just wanted, there is a caveat here. I'm talking with several people who are interested in mural opportunities and so would want reviews. So that's one of the challenges I've faced as well, is if we do the retreat and decide to cancel that month's regular meeting, that can throw off people who are trying to get murals done during the season as well. So I would just throw in, keep that in mind, and/or it's feasible that we may need to meet to handle certain business in addition to the retreat.
Are you thinking those murals will come in throughout the spring? So April, May, June type of thing?
Yes.
Or what kind of time?
I do. I think that would be the most likely scenario that I'm seeing right now. And of course, there's always some urgency because of weather, you know, trying to get in during the cooler but warm weather.
My only concern is like sometimes I feel like we are behind the budget cycle. So like there's budget things that happen in July and I'm like, oh, I wish we had our retreat around that time. So I'm wondering, is summer a bad time for a retreat? I mean, where does that fit in terms of budget conversations that could be valuable?
The city manager's budget will be submitted. Luis, I don't remember for sure. I just looked at the dates. I think it's in June.
I think it is in June, yes, it is in June, the final budget, recommended budget. And then, of course, the final one, it goes through still the public hearing process, and I believe maybe the third week in September is when it's scheduled to be voted on by the commission, so.
I wouldn't mind a retreat around that time because I do feel like sometimes we get a little discombobulated with our advocacy efforts in the arts arena. So if that would be advantageous to do it in the summer, kind of leading up to any kind of public feedback on the budget, I don't know. What do you all think? I know travel is always difficult in the summer. I do a large event in June, so I know it's always a busy time, but what does everyone else think in terms of timing for a retreat?
DMB Smith, I feel like even though with the mural proposals potentially coming in April, I feel like waiting a little while and having some experience with what we're still currently calling the outdoor sculpture exhibition, and that makes sense. But I think just doing the retreat in April to me makes sense. And if there are mural proposals, we can have a special meeting for them. You know, in my experience with mural proposals, that's something where, you know, even if we were all virtual, they can be pretty efficient. So I would rather just do it in April and whatever else kind of piles on top, just kind of handle that as it comes. Instead of trying to, I feel like if we try and find a month where there's nothing else happening, we'll end up just, I don't know, kicking it down the road. I'd rather just do it, not necessarily next week or next month, but I think April seems like a good time. It's early enough in the year, but after we've had experience with all the programs.
Just so you all know, it used to be a little easier to call a special meeting, but now, as you saw from our last experience, which I didn't know at the time, we do have to get you all to sign off on any special meeting. We have to follow the same methodology as the city commission. So that's just, it's not, you know, a deal breaker per se, but it does mean I have to get a wet signature from everybody. So that decision should probably be made at a meeting ahead of whenever we might think we might be doing a special meeting. With that said, my point to that is I would say let's just keep your regular meetings intact, and then we can make it's easier to cancel a regular meeting than it is to add a special meeting, if you will.
So what you're saying is that we'll keep our regular meeting for April, schedule a retreat for April, and then if we need to approve murals, we will have the regular meeting, and if we don't, we can just cancel it.
Correct.
That seems pretty relatively efficient.
And that way you're serving the community if they need some kind of review from you all. And that way we can also keep the meeting as brief as possible.
Does anybody have any objection to that? I mean, I do think doing a summer one sounds sunny and lovely, but is there, does doing it in April fulfill the same timing, allow us to have a head start on things, sort of like you were, Marla, you were speaking to being concerned about, running up against the budget being submitted and some things like that. So does doing it in April fulfill that same goal that you're looking to have of just being ahead of schedule enough?
I would be fine doing it in April.
I will say that for the folks who aren't here, I guess, Porter, would you want to, we can tentatively look to do that and then maybe send out an email and make sure that the 3 friends of ours who weren't able to join us, make sure that they're in the country or available.
Yeah, if you all want to do that, I can throw out, do you want me to target Sundays? Is that the best day? And then I can send out a doodle poll for the 4 Sundays in April and just see where everybody lands, and then we can make a decision. You all can make a decision in March.
Sounds good. Seeing some thumbs up over here on the screen, so.
Okay. When's Easter, actually?
The 20th.
So that's probably out.
And I'm personally am out the 6th, but
All right, so the 20th and the 6th, so we're looking at the 13th or the 27th, most likely. If you all want to start penciling your calendars. Would you want me to consider May 4th? I could throw it in there.
Sure, why not?
yeah, I've
Okay.
been going on that date either, so.
Okay. I will do that. Thank you.
All right, no vote required. That was the last kind of item on our agenda, which means if anybody wants to share any additional miscellany, any cultural events you've attended that you want to talk about, or things that are coming up that you want to plug, this is that section of the meeting. I personally can't think of anything, but it's been a long day.
The Art Center has Roald Dahl's Matilda. It's a musical opening on Friday. And so that's going to be just delightful. And it's all about empowerment. And so when I think about live theater, it just brings people together and builds community. So I'm really excited for that.
Great story, too. I'm a big Roald Dahl fan.
Same.
And I would ask everybody to keep their fingers crossed. My son's at West Junior High. They're doing Beetlejuice Jr., the musical, but their first performance may end up getting canceled tomorrow, and they've been working on this stuff since November. Everything's up in the air. There's backup plans, that sort of thing. So we'll see, but fingers crossed, please, for everybody.
You need Beetlejuice to step in and fix the weather.
I think so.
All right, well, if nobody has anything else to contribute, I will simply look for a motion to adjourn.
Motion to adjourn.
Thank you, Matthew. Do I have a second?
A second.
All right, and we will do a roll call vote starting with Marlo,
Approved.
and then Alicia,
Approved.
and then Matthew.
Approved.
I shall also approve. The meeting is adjourned. Thank you, Porter. Thank you, Luis. Thank you, all of my fellow commissioners, for joining.
Thank you all. Appreciate you.
Thanks to Kurt in the back and all of our fans on YouTube.
All right. Thank you all.
Stay
Good night.
warm.
Will do.